We're always told that the leaders who conquer the really hard seasons, the ones who truly survive, they're the most strategic or the most experienced.
Right, or maybe they just have the deepest pockets.
Yeah,
That's the conventional wisdom.
it is. But if you look closely at the source material we analyze, something else emerges. It's not about sheer experience, it's about who can stay centered when everything else is tilting.
Exactly. The leaders who are truly resilient are the ones who can bring clarity into a room that's just thick with tension. They can make decisions while everyone else is, well, frozen, trapped.
Okay, let's dive right into that because the core idea in our sources is, frankly, it's powerful. Resilience isn't built on just being tough or having this grim willpower. It's built on something else entirely.
It's built piece by piece on emotional intelligence.
AQ.
EQ, yeah. And think about the environment we're in now. The emotional bandwidth you need to lead effectively has just multiplied. You've got faster change, tighter deadlines, higher expectations. It all just drives up the stress.
And EQ is what stops that from leading to burnout.
It's the ultimate differentiator. It prevents that internal collapse, that burnout, and it facilitates real breakthrough.
So for you listening, we're going to be tackling EQ not as some vague, soft skill, but as the core competency for resilient leadership. And the sources are really encouraging on one point.
Which is that emotional intelligence is not fixed. That's the key. It is absolutely trainable. You can sharpen it, you can strengthen it.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, to define this anchor and give you the tools to actually use it.
Let's start right there with defining it. Our research calls emotional intelligence the invisible anchor. For years, it was kind of dismissed as being sentimental.
Yeah, when I hear emotional intelligence, I kind of picture someone who's maybe overly sensitive or easily swayed. So why do the sources insist this is actually a wellspring of profound strength?
Because true strength isn't about ignoring reality. It's about mastering your internal reaction to reality. Daniel Goleman's framework, which is really the gold standard in our sources, breaks this anchor down into 5 pillars. And every single one directly fuels resilience.
Okay, let's walk through them, starting at the bedrock.
The foundation is self-awareness. This is the ability to recognize, to name, and to understand your own moods, your emotions, your triggers.
And critically, how they affect other people.
Yes, exactly. It's not just, navel-gazing. It's quiet, disciplined self-assessment. This is what allows you to see the early warning signs of stress or burnout before they take over.
So how is that different from just being introspective, thinking about your day?
Well, introspection is often looking back. It's retrospective. Self-awareness is real-time, and it's predictive. It's knowing right in the moment, my tone is spiking because I'm stressed, and that stress is now affecting this conversation.
I see. It's that ancient wisdom, right? You have to know what's in your heart to guard it.
You do. And once you identify that stress, well, that's when the next pillar has to kick in.
Which is self-regulation.
The steady hand. This is about managing emotions, controlling those impulses, and choosing to think before you act. It's the internal governor that keeps you from overheating under pressure.
Oh, okay, but this is where people, I think, get tripped up. If I'm a leader and I'm just telling myself, don't be angry or don't show you're scared, isn't that just suppression? How is this different from just stifling everything?
That is the essential distinction. Self-regulation is not suppression, it's management.
Okay.
When you suppress an emotion, that energy stays trapped. And it will find a way out later, a snappy email, lashing out at home.
All right, we all seen that.
Regulation means you feel the emotion, you acknowledge the data it's giving you, like, okay, I feel anger because a boundary was crossed, and then you consciously choose a thoughtful, proportional response instead of a knee-jerk reaction. Self-control, mastered.
Okay, so pillar 3. This moves us from internal mastery to, what, the engine?
To the engine room, yeah, the driving force. That's motivation. And we're talking about the intrinsic drive to achieve. A passion for the work itself that's fueled by purpose. It operates way beyond external rewards like a bonus or a new title.
So if the market crashes or the project funding gets pulled, this is the last thing standing.
Precisely. This clear, unwavering why is the only thing that keeps a leader from buckling when everything outside is bleak.
Yeah.
If you're only in it for the money, you quit when the money's gone. If you're motivated by purpose, you keep going even when the landscape is hostile.
Then we move outward, into relationships, with empathy.
Which is so foundational for leadership. It's the ability to understand, and this is the key part, to share the feelings of another. It's feeling with them, not just for them.
I think I often confuse empathy and sympathy. What's the real difference in a leadership context?
Sympathy is, oh, I'm sorry for you, that must be hard. Empathy tries to step into their emotional reality. So when a team member fails, the empathetic leader doesn't just offer condolences. They understand the fear, the shame, the disappointment that person is feeling.
Right.
Think of the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb. It wasn't helpless. It was profound emotional understanding. He was acknowledging Mary and Martha's grief with them, even though he knew what was about to happen. That is an incredible emotional connection.
That sets the stage perfectly for the final pillar, which I guess is where it all comes together in action.
That's social skills.
Yeah.
This is being proficient in managing relationships, communicating well, resolving conflict, influencing people. It is vital for rallying support and keeping everyone united.
Because you can have all the self-awareness in the world, but if you can't communicate it under pressure.
The team just disintegrates. Exactly.
So this is a really robust framework, but now we have to talk about the resistance because the sources are so clear that leaders are most often undone internally. Burnout, broken relationships.
Yeah.
It's all reaction instead of reflection. We have to tackle the myths that stop leaders from embracing EQ.
We absolutely do. And the first, most stubborn myth is that EQ is soft or weak.
Yeah, we still celebrate that detached, tough-as-nails leader who only uses logic. Why do we still cling to that archetype if the sources prove it's so unstable?
Because control feels comforting, and detachment looks like control. We confuse a lack of emotion with strength. But the reality is the opposite. It takes immense inner fortitude, real strength, to pause, absorb pressure, manage your body's stress response, and choose a thoughtful answer over a reactive outburst.
So the strength isn't in the suppression, but in the regulation.
Precisely. Real strength is regulated and focused, not detached. Our sources mention the Apostle Paul. He was relentlessly focused on his mission, incredibly driven, yet he also models such profound emotional clarity in his letters. Empathy, vulnerability, clear boundaries.
He showed that strength is about emotional clarity, not emotional distance.
Exactly.
Okay, the second myth, and this one is so corrosive today, EQ is irrelevant in technical roles.
Ugh. Yes, the classic false economy. People think, I just need to focus on the code, on the numbers. I don't need to coddle feelings. But think about a massive data project. It requires teams to collaborate, to manage change. That is inherently human work.
Right. If you're a brilliant engineer, but you constantly burn out your team because you lack empathy, you're always retraining, you're introducing churn, you're slowing the project down anyway.
Exactly. A technically brilliant leader who alienates their team will ultimately undermine the very goals they were hired to achieve. Technical skill is necessary, but EQ is the lubricant that lets the whole human machine function under stress.
So EQ is not about being soft, it's about being strategically equipped, turning stress into data, conflict into alignment, and that equipment gets tested most in a crisis.
Oh, absolutely. The crucible of crisis demands high EQ because fear is contagious. When a leader panics, the whole team mirrors that chaos. But a self-regulated leader maintains composure, and that acts as a vital stabilizing presence for everyone.
How does it play out, specifically, in that high-stakes moment?
Well, self-regulation stops the leader from making those impulsive, fear-driven decisions. Instead of immediately blaming people or making rash cuts, they buy time to think. And empathy is vital. It allows the leader to recognize the huge emotional toll the crisis is taking on their team.
The sleepless nights, the anxiety.
All of it. And by acknowledging that stress, by validating those feelings, the leader prevents compassion fatigue. Instead of carrying the burden alone, they foster collective resilience. They're creating psychological safety when the world outside feels very unsafe.
And motivation. When all the news is bleak, how do you find the drive?
That unwavering sense of purpose, that intrinsic motivation, is what sustains hope. We see it throughout history. Leaders who stay focused on their larger mission can navigate disaster without falling into bitterness or despair. The why anchors the how when the storm hits.
And that brings us right to the internal collapse that EQ is designed to prevent burnout. The sources define it as prolonged exhaustion that leads to cynicism, detachment, and just ineffectiveness.
And EQ is the firewall against it. It really is. And self-awareness is your early warning system.
How so?
Because burnout doesn't just happen one day. It starts with the whispers. Irritability, more cynicism, that creeping exhaustion. Self-awareness helps you hear those whispers before they become a full-blown collapse.
Yeah.
You have to know your own limits.
And then I'm guessing self-regulation is what secures that firewall.
Precisely. It lets you proactively set healthy boundaries to filter out the noise. It empowers you to consciously say no to excessive demands and to protect your downtime instead of feeling like you have to take on everything. You have to lead from health, not from exhaustion.
Okay, this is all fantastic in theory, but if EQ is a muscle, we need the workout. For everyone listening, what are the high-impact techniques from our sources we can use immediately? Let's get into the toolkit.
Let's do it. Let's start with self-awareness and regulation for when you feel that disruptive emotion, that spike of stress or anger.
Yeah, give us the tool for when we feel overwhelmed in a meeting.
Use the stop P technique. It's a mindfulness practice.
Mm-hmm.
S is for stop. Just literally freeze whatever you're doing. Pause the action.
Okay.
S, stop.
T is for take a breath. Several deep, slow breaths to physically interrupt that stress response. Reset your system. O is for observe. Notice without judging your physical sensations. A tight chest, racing heart. Notice your thoughts and the emotion itself. Just observe it.
And P.
P is for proceed. Now you choose your next action consciously, grounded in that observation rather than just reacting blindly to the initial impulse.
That is so practical. I can think of 3 times this week I wish I had done step 3 and 4 instead of just reacting. What about for something like a provocative email that just lands in your inbox and makes you see red?
For those, you practice strategic delay. It's a simple rule. If a message triggers a strong emotional response, you implement a mandatory waiting period. 30 minutes, an hour, maybe even overnight before you respond.
Why does that work so well? Because the physiological effects of that acute emotion, they fade pretty quickly. And that delay lets you respond from a place of wisdom and strategy, not frustration.
That one tip alone could prevent so much damage.
Okay, let's move outward. Empathy and social skills. How do we practice those?
Start with active listening. Our sources really emphasize listening to understand, not just to formulate your rebuttal. When someone is speaking, your job isn't to figure out what you're going to say next. It's to internalize what they mean and what they feel.
You can check that, right?
You can, by asking clarifying questions. So, if I'm hearing you right, you're worried about X because of Y. That validation is crucial.
And how do we combine that with building trust?
With intentional appreciation and affirmation. Make it a habit to specifically affirm someone's skill or their effort. Don't just say a vague, good job.
Give me an example.
Say, I noticed your skill in conflict resolution when you mediated that debate. It was really effective because it brought both teams to the table without anyone getting defensive. That ties the appreciation right to the outcome. That's good. Okay, last one, motivation. How do we keep that purpose alive during a long week?
The sources recommend a purpose check-in. At the start of your week, or before a really difficult project, explicitly link the tasks you're about to do back to your ultimate mission. Ask yourself, how does this specific work connect to my overarching purpose?
It transforms a duty into a choice.
It does. It maintains that critical intrinsic drive.
This whole framework, it really shows that EQ provides the structural integrity, the backbone you need to endure hardship and lead with real wisdom. You end up building a legacy of healthy culture, not just a list of accomplishments.
And you model a leadership style that's rooted in regulated, genuine strength. The ultimate impact you have is in the emotional imprint you leave on the people you guide.
So as you reflect on this deep dive and think about where you could strengthen your own EQ muscle this week, we want to leave you with a challenging thought from the material.
Where has emotional neglect, not spiritual warfare, not an external crisis, been the true cause of your professional burnout?